Okay, recording.
Okay. All right, we're going to call the Monday, June 26, 2023 Board Retreat of Liberty Elementary School District to order. We're here at the Liberty Elementary School Library. We have 4 board members present. Board members Bixler, Kenyon, Parks, myself, Michael Todd. And show board member Dwyer is absent from the meeting. And with that, that's everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And board member Parks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next up is our discussion of governing board superintendent team written operating procedures. Dr. Moon.
So, President Todd, members of the board, members of the community who are here, I'm really grateful that we're able to have some time this afternoon. I know it's a tough time with work and things like that happening, but I appreciate the board being willing to kind of do this. So, just a little background. President Todd and I have talked quite a bit about having a successful board and superintendent relationship and what that looks like as a new superintendent with an established board. And so we wanted to spend some time discussing what does that look like under a policy umbrella, but what are the procedures, who does what, or what's the board's duties and my duties, and how we effectively work and communicate together, which I really appreciate the board and President Todd's vision to be able to do that. So because of that, I've invited Dr. Carlson. Howard is the chair, executive director of Guppy Mac. That's the Greater Phoenix Education Management Council. He works with school districts, superintendents, businesses. He's a former superintendent, very well respected in the field, but I asked Howard if he'd kind of be interested in coming to facilitate a session where we're able to have these conversations and talk about kind of these operating principles, with the hope that maybe at the end of an hour and a half, 2 hours, we almost have a draft that we can take to a board meeting and have the board kind of approve as far as how we communicate and work together as an administrative team and the governing board. And so I'm really excited for the session. We have food, and just kind of, if it's okay, President Todd, just kind of eat while we work.
Perfect.
And I'll turn the time over to Howard. I know he kind of has an icebreaker, and I did send you his bio, so the board's aware of Howard's bio. So very respected in the field, very respected in Arizona, an author, written many books, and so I'm really grateful that Howard had the time and was willing to do this for Liberty. So thank you, Howard.
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate the time, and glad everybody can munch as I get going here. Real quickly, maybe we could just go around and if you can give me your name and how long you've been on the board or in the district, and maybe what you do. Just kind of curious, what your background is.
Corcoran Rowe, superintendent, 5 weeks.
That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
I'm Michael Todd. My daughter is a graduate of Liberty School District. She's now a sophomore at the University of Arizona. I've been on the board for about 2.5 years. Which I guess 2 years. Yeah.
I heard you talk in Minnesota. You're not from Minnesota.
I'm not. I go back there to work.
Do you? Okay. Yeah. I worked there for a while till it got 42 below zero and decided to get back out this way.
Yeah.
My name is Brian Parks. I was actually appointed to the board, gosh, it's almost 2 years ago, October. I ran successfully for the position last cycle, so I'm good for about 3.5 years. So. I've got 2 kids in the district, 2 children that coming 7th grade this year. Got to Australia. I'm an entrepreneur. I build businesses. Work too much, but I enjoy it.
I'm Natasha Camp. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Educational Services, and I have been here for 5 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Chris Kenyon, I just got elected / appointed because there was no challenger to the board here this last January. It was my first sitting in on it. I've been in the district for about 7 years. I have 4 kids, 3 of them, well, 2 of them actively are coming here to this school. One of them just graduated last year, so he was a freshman this last year over at Buckeye High, and then I got a 3-year-old up and coming. So we're busy.
Yes.
I'm always always dealing with kids, and I came from Minnesota, so.
Oh, you did? Where were you from there?
St. Louis Park is where we moved out of, but my parents grew up in northwestern Minnesota, Fergus Falls, Whitney area.
Okay, I was a superintendent in the Delano area.
Delano.
Yeah, Minnetonka, that area, if you know that. Yeah.
Beth Strickler, Executive Director of Business Services, have been here almost a year, and I have a grandson here at Liberty.
Paul Bickler. I've lived in the area since 2015, been on the board since 2020, and I'm a retired public school professional.
Okay. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I know you're getting your food, but as you're getting started, or before actually you dig in, just wanted to do a little icebreaker activity just to have a little bit of fun. See if we can figure out who we are here. Just hand those around. Thanks, Natasha. So, yes. So this is going to be an individual activity. What you're going to do is go ahead and take that thing. You've got, we'll give you about 3 minutes, and we'll see if you can get bingo by talking to your other board members or others that are engaged here. So we'll give you about 3 minutes, and we'll see what happens. And then for dessert, you're going to have some chocolate. So if you win, you gotta do well. So go ahead and
We kind of walk around.
yeah.
I'm already guessing.
Yeah,
But we can get commitments from people, right?
yeah, that's right. That's it.
This first one? Yeah, that might be correct.
Yeah, you can initial mine. I heard you talking about it earlier.
Can I initial now?
Are they initialing their own, or are we trying to?
No, just work around. Yeah.
Get them out.
Everybody here is.
Do we need one row?
What's that?
Do we need one row across?
Yeah.
On
Yeah. Oh, you got the bingo?
Oh, yeah.
Good grief. Poor president's
Well,
pretty
do
quick
you
here.
know if you're
He's
correct?
pretty quick. There you go.
Paul's
We gotta
got a
check
book
it
out
out.
this month.
That is true, I put it down.
Yeah, I had.
Minnie's traveling out of the country. Chris can play the guitar. Minnie's got a tattoo. She told me, I don't know that. And of course, speaks a foreign language.
That's cheating.
Wow.
That's cheating.
You guys know each other pretty well. That's pretty good.
I think Mike has an only child. Is that true?
Are you an only child?
Oh, is,
Oh,
oh,
no,
is
no,
an
I'm
only
not an
child.
only
No, you're
child.
not an only child.
No.
No.
So no only
But I
child.
think you have an only child.
It's close,
That's, I know, I was like, ah.
I mean, who's never seen Star Wars? Is there someone in this room who hasn't seen Star Wars?
Me.
Sure.
Are you serious?
Never seen Star Wars. Okay.
No,
Well, that's
never seen.
that's something you're gonna have to try.
This camp?
Yeah.
Have you done a
There's
marathon?
like so many of them.
I have not, you know.
Oh, I thought for sure you
No marathons. Okay.
Well, I mean, my life, yes.
I want to know who's left-handed.
I don't
Yeah, I'm just looking.
know
I
that
didn't see you.
anybody is lefty.
We have no lefties in the group.
No lefty.
I could. Jason's not here.
Oh, there you
Jason's
go.
our lefty.
That's right. See, somebody was going to get extra candy.
Well, I
because
was
they're
forced
left-handed.
to for 6
Yeah.
months because I broke both bones in my
So
arm.
you could technically hit what? You hit math?
I do.
Pretty darn good.
I just work on it every day. So I
Anybody
do
love
math.
karaoke?
I do.
Do you? Anybody else?
Singer.
Karaoke?
Oh, that's more
How about
fun.
anybody have a good celebrity story? Someone's met a celebrity.
I had a brace on my back.
You did have a brace.
Oh, yeah.
I had braces. I think it meant,
There you go.
does it say cheek braces?
Well, Paul, you could put it down for has a broken bone.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Is it your
L1.
one? L1.
L1.
There you go.
There you go. That's a broken
You're
bone.
without your brace.
What?
Yay.
Your brace is gone.
Yeah,
Get better.
yeah.
Good. I think I can speak a foreign language. right?
Marginally accepted by medical.
See.
I don't.
By the way, I do floss my teeth every day. In fact, I do it twice a day.
Oh.
So I think one of them is that you don't like chocolate. Who doesn't like chocolate? Oh, yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah, that's good.
Everybody has a little
Anybody
bit
have a
of
good
dessert
celebrity story though? I want to hear.
Ooh, I had a great one.
Has met a celebrity. Show us. Was it interesting?
If you think,
Photographed the man many times.
Gene Simmons with the makeup or
With
without?
makeup.
Oh, there you go.
Backstage. Went out to make that?
If you ever get a chance to go to his house, that's all there is, a picture of him and Steve.
How tall was he with the shoes on? He
He's
was tall
6
anyway.
foot, yeah, he's tall anyway, he's like 6'3" and then he puts the shoes on.
Yeah, that's gotta
Let me
be,
touch my toes.
he's towering.
Simmons from Kiss.
Got it.
There you go.
Jason Aldean.
Kiss?
I had lunch with
Go on my
Schwarzenegger,
website, you can see all my.
with Arnie.
With Arnie?
Arnie Schwarzenegger.
I had lunch with Schwarzenegger, after he won the 4th Mr. Olympia.
Oh, there you go.
Interesting.
Well, we'll go ahead and get started. So just looking at, and appreciate your, playing along and having some fun with the bingo. It's always good to get to know each other. I didn't know we knew each other that well, that you could sit there and just, pull it out. But, hey, that's all good. That's great. But, yeah, today, starting off, we wanted to look at 3 types of standards related to the board superintendent relationship, analyze governing board versus superintendent duties, and then identify some operating communication standards. I said there's 3, but we're really gonna focus on 2. So want to make sure that that's where we started today. So these are the 3, operational, how the board and the superintendent commits to interact with each other. Have you heard that term before, operating standards? Operating protocol, bottom line is, that is the core document that you're going to have, and we're going to give you an example here in a bit. The second is communication standards, okay? Some districts, in fact, many districts will combine that with their operational standards so that you don't have 2 separate documents, although you can, and I've set it up where you have 2 documents today, just to kind of see what that looks like. But a lot of districts, just so you know, will combine those 2 together so that you have 1 document. And then the third is accountability standards. And that's your strategic plan. You're working on or you have a strategic plan, I assume?
There is one in place, yeah.
There is one in place, and I'm sure you'll be revisiting that. But again, these are the 3 areas, the 3 primary areas where the board and the superintendent are working together. And so, again, wanted to make sure we highlighted those 2, or those 3, and indicate that we're gonna work on the top 2, okay? The first activity I'm gonna have you do, and you have a pad, there's a few things you have in front of you. You have the pad, and then you have some sticky notes. With this first activity, what I'd like you to do, and this is individual, go ahead and make a list of all of the responsibilities that you believe governing board members have. So just make a list. I'm gonna give you a few minutes to go through that and do that.
Oh, got it.
That's solely the board or the board and association?
Say that again.
So is that just solely the board's
Yeah.
responsibility?
The board corporately. So not individual board,
No, I mean,
corporately.
so we're
Yeah.
not talking about something that both the board and the superintendent.
No, this would just be the board, just the board. Give you another minute, somewhere in there. Okay, so how many did you get?
10.
10? Anybody else?
Depends on what we're looking at.
Okay, depends on how they combine and all that, yep,
Well, you
understood.
brought it down to legal
Right,
responsibility.
that's
That's
what I
right.
was thinking.
Yeah.
It's really two.
Coming out of statute,
There's
yep,
really two that I can think of,
yeah, yeah, well,
but there's other.
we'll take a look, Okay, so hiring, evaluating the superintendent, who had that one? Well, we're doing pretty good. Okay, providing guidance on the development. Now, it's interesting with the budget. Notice how granular it gets. Okay, providing guidance on development of the budget. Anybody have that one?
Well, not exactly, but.
Not, but close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Approving the budget. Hopefully we all have that one. You know, that's pretty clear. Monitoring the budget. Are you, you know, each month you're getting, you know, finance reports, and sure Beth is keeping you informed there. Setting salaries. Anybody have that one? Sure have had, yeah, everybody should have that. What about approving purchases? And there's a nuance there, because obviously you're not, you know, you're not dealing with the day-to-day, but, you know, at that larger level. Hopefully everybody has this one. Establishing improving policies. You all have that? Okay. Curriculum materials. You have that? Okay. And that one has been kind of going through different iterations as the laws changed. Adopting school calendar.
Yeah, didn't even think about that.
Anybody have that one?
Great point. We were just talking about that too.
Today,
Did anybody get that one?
I didn't write.
Okay. But you had that one.
No, I missed it.
Oh, you missed that.
Natasha and I were just talking
Oh,
about this
okay.
earlier too.
Well, I was gonna give you these chocolate.
I got 3
Yeah,
here.
there you go, you're good. Okay, reviewing regulations for compliance with policy. Anybody have that? Who does the regulations?
District administration.
District administration. Superintendent is the one that develops your regulations. As a board, you develop policy, and if you go to, I'd have to remember, I'll try to remember, but if you go to your governing board policy G, well, I'll look it up, it's not G. But the bottom line is that it outlines that your superintendent develops the regulations. Basically, that's how the item is going to be implemented in the district. Because you're setting the policy, superintendent's doing the regulations. So that's one sometimes boards are, you know, haven't thought about. Approving personnel actions, you know, based on superintendent's recommendation. I'm sure most of you have that. Closing, constructing schools. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're going through that process now, and hopefully will be for a while. Assessing board effectiveness. Did anybody have that? That's a legal responsibility. Okay, so you know, you have whatever your self-evaluation form is in policy, but again, that's one of your legal responsibilities. Monitoring progress towards goals. Again, back to your strategic plan. I'm sure you get updates, or I'm not sure how that works for you, but bottom line is that that concludes those. So that's 14 items pulled out of statute. Okay, 14 items pulled out of statute related to your legal responsibilities as a board. Now what I'm going to have you do is go ahead and take another sheet of paper, and we're going to go through the same process, but let's see what the superintendent does. See if we can figure that out. This is a little harder. Now notice also, see where it says many of these are delegable? So what, obviously that means that, the superintendent may be the person responsible, but it may be that, Natasha or Beth are doing whatever that is, or Jason or whoever. So keep that in mind as you're making your list. Take another minute or so. Alrighty, anybody have more than 10? You did, Natasha?
I think there's more than 10, but yeah.
You had more than 10? Okay, okay. Yeah, you need more than 15?
I have 23.
Great, there you go. Well, we'll see how, yeah, we'll see how this
I was
looks.
just thinking about all my responsibilities, all of Dr. Monroe's responsibilities on
Right.
pets.
Well, again, you know, we'll see how this combines. So, okay, enforcing statute, rule of state, federal government. Did you guys have that? Enforcing statute? Okay. That comes in a number of different forms, but obviously that's a biggie. Enforcing policies of the board. I'm sure you have that, you know. Administration of the school system. Do you have that? Okay. So the day-to-day operation of the schools and how they operate. Regulations, we talked about that earlier. Regulations for the administration of the district. Anybody get that this time? There you go. Yep. So, and again, you know, that's one of the things I encourage you to look at, you know, when you go back to your board policies and you're kind of reviewing that. You've got your policy, you have regulations, and as you look at, you know, the policy manual, there's 3 or 4 different types of documents that you have in there, you know, forms, like I said, the regulations, there's various species. Let's see, responsible for financial planning of the district, preparing the annual budget. Yeah, you guys, I'm sure, had that, you know. Maintain procedures, controls for the expenditure of school funds. Again, that's a major item. And again, most of that is delegated, but it's still, you know, ultimately the responsibility of the superintendent. Maintains adequate records. Anybody have that?
That's a good.
Maintains adequate records for the schools. Now, notice a lot of this, and that's what's interesting as you go through both the board duties and the superintendent duties. This is management. You know, when you look at statute, it's not talking about leadership per se. So what we're dealing with here is more management than it is leadership. That's where, you know, when you look at your strategic plan, you look at other kinds of things, that's where the leadership comes in. Let's see, regulations for maintenance of district properties, governs the safety and transportation of students. You know, that's a big one. I don't know if you had that, but anyway, that's a big one, and safety is becoming a bigger and bigger issue, as we know. Responsible for use of the buildings. So you've got facility use and all of that. And that's a big thing to your community. I have a daughter who plays club volleyball, and you probably have kids that have done that. She's 17, kind of coming towards the end of it, but it's interesting, you know, between different districts, how different things work and don't work at times. And so, fortunately, working with all these superintendents, I can call them and say, hey, you know what, I'm standing here at your middle school door, rented this facility. So anyway, recommends and plans new schools, additions, all of that. You're going through that, obviously, have been, that's a biggie. And then the final one here is oversees submission of required reports. And it's interesting, I had a number of meetings today, and started out at the governor's office and then ended up at the state board meeting. And one of the districts down by Yuma, Antelope, ended up in receivership today. If you're familiar with that.
Financially?
Settled, yes, financially. And you know, a lot of conversation about that, but obviously, you know, when you look at reports that have to be submitted, it's interesting because, you know, at times, you know, some of that stuff can get blown up. One of the things that I always did as a superintendent, and I think I've shared this with Dr. Monroe, but I had like a calendar that, you know, with cabinet we would go through, and every 2 weeks we'd stay ahead, and it had every report, everything that's due, so that we were always ahead of the game. And, you know, worked out very well that way to stay on top of things. Because without that, you know, it's easy to have, out of, I don't know, 500 things that are due, things drop through the cracks, so. Anyway, okay, well, good. So, you know, that gives you a sense of both board responsibilities, superintendent responsibilities, and wanted to give you that as a foundation for kind of the meat of what we're gonna do. And I'm gonna go ahead and hand this around real quick. You can hand those. What this is a sample board operating protocol. I'm going to, first of all, give you this, and then I'm going to give you a couple of other documents that are research on board best practice and that kind of thing. But the operating protocol for standards, as they're referred to, this would be what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, and this is, you know, actually an operating protocol that has been used by a school district. Now, what you'll notice is, you know, there's a number of different statements, and ultimately, you need to think about what statements you want in Liberty. Okay? Now, you may use some of these statements. You may have other statements, and we'll go through an activity in terms of coming up with those statements. But this gives you a sense of what this looks like. If you look at your document, and for some reason, let's see. Okay. You're going to notice first page, you've got a bunch of bullets. If you go to the second page, I want you to see that down towards the bottom, you notice where the board actually signs this. So how the operating protocol tends to work is that the board develops it like we're doing here today, or goes through the process of starting to develop it. Ultimately, Dr. Monroe will take what you've done today, develop a draft, bring it back to the board at a board meeting. You'll go through and refine it, ultimately adopt it, then you sign off on it. Then each January, during your organizational meeting, you reaffirm it. Now, prior to that, I don't know, do you always have a board retreat in the fall, or no? Not always? Okay, well, at some point prior to January, typically what you would do is revisit this and say, hey, we need to add whatever it might be, or we really want to take out something. And so when you get to January at that organizational meeting, then you reaffirm it or re-adopt it, I guess, depending on what you've done. And then you go forward. So this is, again, an example of what that looks like. So we're going to go through a process of trying to identify what these items are. And again, you may take some of these items. It may be that you have other items, but we're going to, again, look at that. Now, I'm going to hand out a couple of other documents here real quick. This one, here you go. This one is research on effective superintendent-school board collaboration. Now, it's a, I don't know, like a 10-page document, 8, whatever. I'm not expecting you to read this. What I would like you to do, though, is pay attention to the recommendations and key findings on the front page. You can scan the rest of it, but bottom line is, this is, again, a research study on effective school board, superintendent school board relationships and operations. Let's see, this document, grab it, I'll just hand those out too. This is another study. It's on peak performing school boards, and the study was looking at which school boards ended up with kind of the best performance, or where, you know, the opposite was the case, where there was low performance. But ultimately, they came up with a list of what they correlated to be most effective. And if boards did these things, then ultimately they were effective in terms of their operations and ultimately academic achievement. So there's that one. And then this final item is it's a little article on interacting with like the staff and the community on complaints. The bullet points speak to a little acronym that you would probably want to look at. Again, you don't need to read this stuff, but you do want to scan it. So what I was going to do is give you a few minutes to scan each of these documents. Once you're done with that, then what I'd like you to do is the person next to you, if you could engage them in conversation about what you've gleaned, kind of what your thoughts are, that would be kind of the second piece. So go ahead and review, take a few minutes individually review, and then have a conversation with somebody next to you, and then we'll go on from there.
It doesn't hurt. And he goes, oh my God. And he stepped both feet right into that one. Yeah, but it's true. You don't know that experience. You can sit there and you have to just do a conversation. You don't know what happens.
Right? And usually the ones I think that it's stayed very well,
Yeah, you don't.
right? 'Cause but this is nice, right? I heard you, I'm gonna pass that along, right? I'm gonna pass that along.
That's when it's right, no, but it's one of those issues, especially, you get this, oh.
Yeah. Okay, what did you guys think about the performance?
Someone chooses to, there's no, we have no recourse to anything, and, you know, it's no policy. That's kind of like that. Somebody says they're not. Well,
Maybe that's something to talk about. But it's sort of like the teacher was established on the PLC, right? And somebody who's sort of isn't all, they don't go to see it. How go to kill you?
asking questions, so we can understand, so that we're not. I spend a lot more time listening. Because
I think this one is to be efficient and
my brain's already fried when I walk in there. I mean, it was one of those times sitting here, I just came in 6 hours, I wrote documents and began the teachers' requirements for this stuff. I'm fried. I gotta flip my brain to another place.
as you go through the process, you have Post-it notes in front of you. Go ahead and identify items that you would want to have as a part of this, as a part of your operating protocol.
We just circle the whole board.
There you go. That's right.
Say that again, Howard, what were you saying?
I said, you have Post-it notes in front of you. And what I want you to do is identify items that you believe you would want to have in the document. Now, I'm not saying you've got to write out 52 items. What I would do is go through and look at the sample and say, you know, I like item 3, 12, and 8, or whatever. And beyond that, based on the research, so on and so forth, I'd like, you know, I don't know, some additional ones, whatever that might be. So go ahead and write on the Post-its. We'll just briefly discuss this here in a bit, but just wanted you to make sure that you knew that you could write on the Post-its. Once you do, you can put them up on this chart paper over here across the hall. And
You want them all on one Post-it? Or
Yeah.
do you want, like, if we had 10,
Oh.
10 different Post-its?
10 different Post-its would be great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
If they're real short, you can put a bunch on there. One of the things I want to point out too is that oftentimes when people go through this, they think they have to reinvent the wheel. You don't. You know, you may say 80% of this is good, you know, or you may say I don't like any of it. The idea is that it, in the end, is your document. You know, it ends up being your items. And if you like the ideas that you see on the sample, you know, you can obviously end up using some of those.
Where do we put them, Howard?
Right over there,
On the left?
on the left,
Okay.
the board operating standard.
All right.
Good to get up, huh?
It's a little.
hard to see. One's not.
Well, the only one I have to say is some of it probably should be listed because it's obvious, but it's not. That's
Well,
why.
but yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
Maybe it needs to be stated, you know what I mean? And it is obvious.
This is really a test of your handwriting. I've gotten better. Get pretty good at it when you do it on the board.
Do you need another post-it pad, Mr. Parks?
I'll share. I'll share with you. Keep going. Leave him alone, Beth. He's doing great work over here.
It's a good thing you didn't have mine, it's not gone.
He's the rough crowd.
Yeah, yeah. Natasha, what'd you do, just double yours?
I sure did.
What's that?
Is that what you put on your post-its? 1, 5, 7,
I gave
13.
I gave you a
Hey, Mike, you're jumping around.
They're falling off there.
Don't get some paper over here. We wanna grab them.
Or maybe you attach them all together.
They're falling off over there.
They're not great. Yeah, no doubt. Hold it? Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, I won't kick him.
That was a good idea, though. Chris, that would be a great idea.
A different environment.
Yeah.
My most favorite.
Yeah.
Right.
Natasha, we probably gotta put some tape along the side.
Okay.
They-
Do you have to? They're not as sticky.
No. Not really. We take it. Serious.
Yes, but I thought we would reach down.
I grew up in Mount.
In the, oh, Mount, okay, yeah, okay.
That was high school, so you had to go to Delma.
Oh, he did, there you go. Off he went, yeah, I bet, he said, nope, I'm not being there. I was there, let's see, when was I there? 2003 to 2005, yeah.
You would have been a
2000,
sophomore, maybe junior, right there.
okay,
So,
Really?
You may have been a-
yeah, isn't that crazy?
as long as the-
So Gibson Mound, you said,
Yeah, yeah, I went to Wisconsin, so.
okay, okay, got it, yeah. Well, let's talk, it was just, you know.
My parents had a wood shop, and we were stationed in Delma.
Oh, really? Okay. You mean your offices were there, or
We had
your
a
business?
workshop, yeah,
Oh, okay. Oh, did you? Okay, yeah. Yeah, it was interesting because, yeah, we enjoyed it. Well, initially, we were talking about growth and things here. Independence, you know, that area. So Independence started to grow. And Loretto, some of that area. Independence was good.
Previous
And,
line.
Delano, it was more average, I'd say, and, so it was interesting just to kind of see those dynamics, but academically, it was really good. You know, I remember, we had a blue ribbon school, we had, I don't know what year it was, maybe, 2003, I think. We had the highest gains between fifth and eighth grade in the state. And that year, Minnesota had the top scores in vision, which meant we were right there. That's how we ran. I just ignored it. You know, it was like, and even the money there. I don't know if you've been back there, but we built a, it was, let's see, 300 feet by 100 feet wide field house. Have you ever been in it? Okay, well, you know, elevated walking track.
I did run track.
6-foot basketball courts.
You were getting ready for something.
You know, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just rock us around home down.
Yeah, I remember that.
Ryan
Yeah,
Pagel.
isn't that crazy?
Ryan Pagel.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know if you've got all your Post-its up there, but, just real quickly, thinking about the different, documents that you looked at. What surprised you? What was something that stood out? What did you notice and wonder?
Well, one thing that came to my mind is actually what Brian was just said at the end is, you know, you look at some of these and you think, gosh, that seems pretty obvious, like it doesn't even need to be said. But maybe that's why it has to be said, right?
That's right.
Just so there's a just good common understanding. Because, you know, there's a few of these where I'm like, yeah, totally fine, yeah, you know? But yeah, we probably do need to say it because boards come and go, superintendents come and go, you know, but there should be good relationship and distinctive responsibilities.
Right, and it establishes a baseline.
Yes.
You know, in terms of, you know, how we behave or things we're gonna do, you know, how we're gonna interact, all of that. Any other, observations in looking at the different documents? Like I said, these two are research studies that, I think are pretty helpful, especially this one. You know, I think, there's a lot there. I like it in that, it's pretty comprehensive. It's used throughout the country, and again, has a lot of detail, you know.
Well, as you reviewed the document too, I don't want to be the dominator here, but we identified there's like 2 or 3 themes that just weaves throughout all of it: communication, relationships, trust. You know, you see on a lot of those, on all the documents, especially this one.
Right,
You know,
right.
communication protocols like through conflict resolution and understanding whose responsibilities are which, and you know, and those are foundational. When those break down, it's really hard to.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you think about, you know, interacting with people or groups, that's oftentimes where it comes from, is the communication issue. Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
sometimes communication is a challenge from the standpoint that you can't really speak amongst each other unless you're at a board setting, in a quorum setting.
Sure.
One board member can talk to another board member, but as soon as you do that, it's really hard to talk to another one because you, at that point, you need to hub and spoke.
Right.
So it's very hard for a small board to have candid conversation. Whereas if you're at the state legislature, there's a lot more. So if you talk to one less than a quorum, you've got considerable amounts. Plus, they all meet with their caucuses, which is oftentimes a quorum. Almost always is one side or the other, and kind of have a general idea. If you've got 20 people thinking one way, you know you either got an uphill swim or uphill battle, uphill swimming upstream, or you're taking away a lot of other stuff. So that becomes a challenge for us, and just kind of at meetings. So it can be a challenge.
Yeah, and that I think that makes sense, you know, in that, you know, with open meeting law, it can be tough, you know, in terms of having those kinds of conversations. So the challenge becomes, you know, what are other mechanisms that you can use in terms of that? And different boards look at that differently, I think, you know, retreats, you know, study sessions, things like that can help, but it doesn't always give you that opportunity. But it's better than nothing, you know. So I think that's important. Any other observations or thoughts on that?
I didn't hear there were, like was stated earlier, a number of themes, and it was possible to combine quite a few, appeared to me, by just a tweak or two within the language.
Sure.
Good. Also, is the language here intentionally comforting? Because it seems to be less formal.
Yeah, I think that the idea is that it is a document that not only the board and the superintendent consume, but the public consumes. And it helps them to understand, because there are issues where, you know, excuse me, the way the community might try to interact with the board, to the extent they know kind of how you interact with the superintendent and vice versa, and that's in plain language, that helps. You know, it makes a difference that way. So, no, I think that is true. So looking at this document real quick, the sample, I'll call it. How many of these items did you find are things that you think you might want to use? Just out of curiosity. And you don't have to name, I'm just curious, was it 2? Was it 10? Was it, I want the whole thing? You know, just kind of curious.
At this point,
What's that?
go ahead, Paul.
I had 8.
You had about 8? Okay, yeah.
At this point, I like the whole thing. I would be looking at more, what wouldn't I want on here?
Sure, yeah. And
I like the whole thing too. I thought there's probably a few that could be maybe combined, you know, because some of the language was similar, but I had a problem just saying, wow, that one, you know, that was tough to just say, cross that one off. Or
Right.
just assume people know that, because I do like how it's written. It's, I don't know if it's comforting but just people understand. To Michael's point, people don't understand the board doesn't go out to coffee before the meeting.
Right.
And talk about it. They don't understand the open meeting law. They think about caucusing and board members meeting, but that's not what happens at the board. So I kind of like how it's written, actually. It's kind of to the point, but easy to understand. So like Chris, I had a hard time just saying, you know, let's get rid of 14 and 15, but we could combine some.
Sure. Well, and the other thing is, you can take some of the language and tweak it. You know, like number 3 or something. You can take the way it's written and you can tweak that as an example. So you have that opportunity or that option. So it doesn't have to be exactly the way it's written either. The other thing I was going to just mention to you, kind of as a side note, not really part of this conversation, but going back to just general information about the board superintendent team. If you go to the back page of the document, did you notice that? Okay, I just wanted to point that out. Now, why do you think that is attached to the document? Any ideas there?
Public.
It is, it helps them, and it helps the board, it helps others. And again, like, you know, Chris is saying, it gives others that consume this an idea as to what does that relationship look like, because it's part of the document. And this came from the Nebraska School Board Association is where that ultimately originated from. But anyway, so no, I think that's good. Okay, what we're going to do now real quick is just get up, you know, it's what, 3:46 in the afternoon, we're tired. Go over here, we're going to see what we can combine, because I think we probably can combine some things. So if you can get up, come on over, we'll take a look at what we got.
I'm just kidding. I brought them for everybody. Yeah.
I wonder who's this was. Do you know? Tasha was, no, that was,
I'm pink.
this Paul,
Yeah.
this
Are
is
they,
you.
are they gonna do
Okay.
That's me.
Oh, it's
me.
you, Beth? Okay.
No, this is mine.
Okay, that's your fault. So, no surprises. Did anybody else have that one?
Yes.
No surprises, no surprises,
Oh,
no
okay.
surprises.
Yeah, mine are kind of in a weird order, but.
Okay, so I'm not gonna cross all these out, but that, that's one that can be combined. Complaints to the superintendent, not sure.
For me, that's the same as last stop.
Okay, the last,
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
afternoon.
board is the last stop,
This one.
and so
You're saying four more.
complaints have to go through a process.
Last, that was somewhere,
Well,
Last stop, not
I have
first.
followed chain of command.
yeah.
yeah, that's it.
Okay, okay. And this is important for Dr. Monroe, because what this is ultimately doing is, it's refining this along with what you have over there. And like I said, ultimately what he's gonna do is he's gonna take this and, produce a new document like you had over there.
Decipher it.
But, annual goals, was that,
I have that in there too.
that's somewhere else in here? Okay, not sure where, but anyway, that's fine. Board is last stop, that one is, that's kind of the same thing,
Chain of command.
right?
Yeah.
Board decision as a whole, what does that mean? Is that-
That means that we can disagree in private, but we're together in public.
Okay,
Yeah, I was trying to.
was
find-
that anywhere else in
Trying
here?
to,
Yeah,
I kind of. Not,
11,
not,
that's kind of what.
Keep the meetings as possible, individual board members should support the
not
board,
against
yeah,
single
yeah.
agendas, right?
So everybody is, once the board decides,
Yeah, you move
as a
forward.
corporate body, you move ahead. Yes, that's an important one, and, I know over my years as a superintendent, I know that, that can be a challenge, but this process helps that, because you've gone through it, and you've talked about it. Okay, so I'm gonna cross that one off, but you understand what it is.
So, tell me what you're crossing out.
We already have that.
Just so you know that exists somewhere else, I'm not gonna,
Taboo game.
go through all of it. You're gonna have to, yeah, but the idea was to have the conversation
Yeah, got it.
so that you clarify, because when you're sitting in your office, whenever you're gonna do this, you're going back and looking at these, it's like,
Yes.
what was that?
Okay.
Okay, students first and foremost, is that was,
That was something. This is-
okay, got it. Okay, so we've got that one somewhere. Represent, needs of all stakeholders, was that
That was.
somewhere?
That's Beth.
No, you just crossed all mine off, so I'm done.
So you're done, you're out of here, you're out of here. Civility, we talked about that one, right? That's somewhere else. No unilateral actions, act as a whole, we've seen that. Set goals for district,
Yeah, we already have
okay, we got that somewhere.
it. I think the one above too.
Everything I've got is before.
Self-governance, what does that mean?
Control yourself, govern yourself. If you're screwing up, call it out. Take care of your own business.
Okay,
Keep your house clean.
are you doing with that, are you doing your self-evaluation as a
That
board?
would be it. I
Are
felt like
you-
more of event related.
Yeah,
So that, not so much a big thing, but something happens and you need to deal with that event right now.
sure, yeah. Well, and again, I think that's, yeah, I will. And along with that, the self-evaluation, I think that's important just from the standpoint that, well, and the way I always do it is I had everybody do it on their own. And then we came together and talked about it so that it's, that kind of a conversation. Focus on planning, policy making, we have that somewhere? No?
Yeah.
Maybe not?
That's a separation of things.
Okay.
Job.
Surprises, I'm not gonna go through all these. Issue, constructive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that. Negative impressions, that kind of ties back into,
Yeah, well, and
And
being together.
conduct.
Yeah.
long meetings, well,
Oh, yes, we all have that.
There was, there was one about a fishing.
Number
meeting.
12, efficient and
That's one of
effective.
the ones I throw out. I mean, you really, I would hate to try to say that we're gonna keep a meeting artificially short.
Yeah.
There are sometimes you need to go long.
Yeah.
So I have a problem with even.
You should be prepared.
Or we have times where we have votes that we've done every year, like signers, and then somebody's not prepared. Is this new? Have we ever done this? Do your homework before the meeting, so you're not asking questions that are.
Yeah,
You've approved
I
this
think that's a
every
good
year.
clarification, so I wrote that, so
Not
that,
a quota, not like, hey, we're having
Right.
meetings, I get what you're saying, but yeah, if you
Well,
prepare.
that's staying on the subject.
Right.
I mean, we have a tendency to, even after that, get that point off,
Yeah.
then,
Yeah, go down.
Rabbit
and
trail.
then I have to have Mike bring me back home.
Yeah, no, they really know it.
how about play to the audience? Is that a,
Don't play.
Yeah,
part of the
that's what,
Don't.
yeah.
I mean, with that, we do have constituents, so it's not
Yes.
necessarily the group in the room, but if you have your entire base that's gonna support your override, saying, we wanna see this,
oh yeah,
we do need to listen to that. So I don't know if we're playing them, but we need to listen. Our job as elected officials is to represent the voters.
yeah, right,
We want them to have these ideas as well. There's a fine line between voters sometimes want, when they say slash school budgets, do this, do that, they say, but student
Probably
first,
should
we
have
need
been
to
more
educate. So
specific.
sure.
we're not playing towards a special interest group in a room, but we have to listen to one
Well,
community as
and
a whole.
here's what I'm gonna say, you're talking issues, which is good, and I think what we don't wanna do is, play to, individuals or groups. In other words, it's, you know, it's related to and it, like you said, the override. It's not that, you know, you're trying to play to a certain group or individual.
Making a speech to a group, to a person.
That's the idea behind it, that's exactly what it is, yeah. Endless discussion, you know, that long meetings, surprises, address, we talked about that, keep the meetings as positive, okay. Superintendent will ensure supporting info required for informed decision-making is provided 3 days, okay? So time to be able to digest before you discuss and or interact. Representative, let's see, is it interest for children, okay.
Yeah, mine were numbered.
Communication and trust, I didn't see that one, but that's a good one. So, was that on here
Number
somewhere?
2,
Oh, that-
communication between staff and the board are encouraged.
Oh, is that what that means? Number 2 is from there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
number 2 is.
Oh, got it,
Some
okay.
of the numbers I just.
I did the
Yeah,
same thing.
no, it's
We
fine,
just numbered our bullets.
it's fine. Concerns individuals,
That's kind of what
or
Paul was saying.
consensus.
What Paul was saying, you know, it's not a 5-0 vote, but it's a 3-2 vote, but then all the board gets behind it.
Yes,
Right,
everybody's-
that's consensus. When we leave the room, we also do it.
We've seen this one, conduct at
Conduct that board meeting.
board meetings, yep. Oh, and these are all, we won't worry about that, because they're in the document. No surprises, do the job.
This happens at all hours. So it's important. If we're asked to vote on things, budget, if we're not taking tours of schools,
Right.
we're not meeting with constituents at 11 o'clock. Because that's when that organization, the Lions Club,
Sure.
the Chamber of Commerce meets, we're not hearing those things.
Yeah.
We applied for a job that is not an 8 to 5 job, and nor is it an after 5 job. It happens all the time, so the board has to be into the community, has to be stewards of the district, and be out there. It's not, I can only do this
Yeah.
after 7 p.m. at night.
Be engaged, yep. Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's a great point.
Your policy for student achievement.
Not
So say-
information.
Yep. Consensus building, talked about that, civility.
And that's sometimes hard to do, consensus building, because again, because of the form issue.
Sure.
I got an idea, bounce it to him, but as soon as he talks to somebody else, well, we've messed up the forum. I can call one person, I can't call another one, I can call Paul, say, hey, Paul, I got this idea, what do you think? Oh, it's a great idea. Now we gotta have this, and I think sometimes that's what causes a longer meeting we don't want. We don't have, downtown, they do all sorts of stuff behind closed doors, and they make horse trades, they do stuff, I say downtown capitals, we don't get that.
Right.
We don't get the caucus, we don't get to do anything, it's all
True.
in the public. I mean, even here, which is great, we've got people in the meeting present. Somebody might wanna say something that they feel reserved to say.
Right.
You would easily have to go right behind this little door and have a really good conversation. Though somebody might be hesitant how that is. And that's,
No, No, you're right.
It's tough in a small meeting.
It
If
is.
we were a board of 20, we could.
Well, and
talk
plus
to
the
9.
regulations and how they work and all that. And so, you know, like I said earlier, that's a tough one. And, you know, through study sessions, I mean, you can only do as much as you can do.
Well, that's why I think the study
But,
sessions are really good.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
already done one, and we've talked about, you know, not doing them every meeting, but when
Right.
there's an issue, you know, like with the budget, that was awesome, that Beth did, and we beat
Right.
it up, and the board was able to ask questions, so,
Mhm.
because that's more of a time, and we put that out to the budget, we recorded that.
Right,
Good, so we
right.
see it.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Move the question, that's good. That's
Same thing with long meetings.
discussion.
We've
Yeah,
had that
that's-
defense where we just calls the question.
Yeah,
Along those lines, I think we need to clean up our rules of order.
you're right now?
Our rules of order for the.
Oh, okay,
We're limited.
yeah, are you
And
using
speaking with
Robert's?
our lawyer, well, Robert's rules doesn't exactly play to the open meeting law, because Robert says right at the beginning, you set your agenda at the beginning of the meeting.
Right.
So there's parts of there, but we, and our current lawyer has said, like, our policy doesn't allow for us to have amendments.
Mhm.
Our current lawyer has told me, yes, you can do amendments, that's just standard, that's no,
Mhm.
you can do that, but we need to clean up our rules of
Now,
order.
let me go back on that. Your current board policy says you can't offer an amendment?
In fact, the Arizona School Board Association proposed policy does not allow it. And
That's-
anybody that runs meetings looks, I've had so many people, parliamentarians, legislators, federal, state, local, they all look at that and go, this is impossible to conduct a meeting with this. I can call a meeting order and I can adjourn the meeting.
Sure.
Aside from that, there's not much that can be done unless it's a perfect.
And it sounds like your
So we need to
legal
work on-
counsel, who do you guys work with? I'm trying to-
We work with,
Just Jake.
we work with a few, but right now, primary for the board is Kentucky Brown.
Okay, okay.
But that, again, that could be a study session where we have the lawyer come out, because, yeah, there should be good, it's not even good faith, but being able to amend motions and things like that. And we have to have a good understanding of what is the procedure we're following, because some board members bring out different points about it, you know what I mean?
Well, right, and you have to know enough. I mean, what's a privileged motion as compared to, I mean, there's different types of motions, and the more you get into, I wonder if they, you know, have done that just to make it easy.
Well,
But,
I think it
you
is,
know,
that's what the
the
school board
more-
association told me, they just tried to simplify it, but
Yeah.
it's so simple.
Yeah.
We've had a
It's
couple
too
times where we
simple.
made a motion, a second,
It's too simple.
and now all of a sudden you go, whoa, we just missed this.
Right,
Now we're stuck, so we have to go vote it down,
yeah, and then start over.
start over again,
Yeah.
which just
Okay,
adds
that's a
to
good
long
point. I
meetings.
see
Yeah,
what you're saying.
well, obviously, that's when you'd wanna work on.
I mean, we've done
um,
that sometimes 3 or 4 times trying to get it right. Long.
Sorry.
Based on time, I'm not gonna go through the rest of these, but,
We accept the choice.
you're the one, right?
And we
New
are all
guy.
learning.
New guy.
That's right. Yeah.
Who's the only one that had the guts to, I just start.
I'm not gonna go through the rest of these, but what I'm gonna tell you is that, Dr. Monroe would obviously take all of this, along with what, you know, you have as the sample, and create something that looks like the sample as a draft that would come back to you as a board. And, then from there, you can work it through a process and ultimately adopt it. What we're gonna do is real quickly, cause I know, you know, we're running late, but I wanted to, do a little bit on communications, show you that real quick. So we'll go back over here and, we'll expedite the process a little bit, but you'll get the idea. Having,
There's one that isn't on there, and I think it's critical to disparage the board members outside the district.
Speaking for
Watch
yourself.
yourself, watch yourself.
Speaking for yourself.
Brian, that's significant, speaking positively for work.
Sitting awful close to home.
And that one around. Yeah. I just think it's. But yeah, put it on the post-it.
and this one. Okay, you have 3 documents coming around. One is a communication standard. Basically, it's the same thing that you saw before. And okay, looking at the screen up here, with communications, the key there is to remember that you really have regular and emergency communications, okay? Most often now the some emergency communication items are on here. It's not that you would necessarily have them on there normally, because you would put that in like a crisis management plan or somewhere separate. Excuse me. But the idea is that you could put it into one if indeed, you know, that was your desire. Now notice that this looks like the operational standards. Very similar, different items, but very similar. I think I told you at the beginning, some districts will combine these into one document. Some districts want to have two because they want to have these two things called out. You can choose to go whichever direction you want. Another item, like I was just mentioning, some districts would just have regular communications, and some districts would have both regular and emergency. So you have that option of doing those different kinds of things. And that's why this exercise, I think, is good, because you can make this into how you want it to look for Liberty. So you have different opportunities and options. So you've got that document. You then have this little document. This is separate research from Hanover. And if you look, it says increasing transparency and communication with stakeholders. There's some information there on those couple pages. If you were to go back to this particular document on page 2 and 3, there's information on communicating between board and superintendent with you know, stakeholders, that kind of thing. And then the third document, well, I'm not even going to mention the third document yet. What I'd like you to do is take a couple minutes and just review these documents that I handed out, and then have a brief discussion about what you would want to have up there. And what we're going to do is we're going to add into that actually recording your differences. We're not going to go through them like we did before based on time, but what we will do is give you an opportunity to put them up on this the poster border sheet on the right, and then you'll have that up there as well.
So the same thing,
And
similar to what we did with operating principles.
correct, correct. And again, be thinking about, do you want one document? Do you want two documents? Do you want regular and emergency communication, you know, in whatever document you come up with? Be thinking about that as well. So I'll give you a moment to go through that, and then you can have your conversation and make your post-it notes.
going to when I first began, including the next, I would prefer to have good communication. So those two go.
Yeah, I can find all three. That one, and that one. Well, this one has, they all talk about communication. That one, I have a lot about that, and Cruz just rubbed it in.
What I'm gonna have you do on your Post-it notes, only write items that aren't on the sample. If you've, you know, if you've got something that's outside the sample, we'll go ahead and write that on. Otherwise, just, you know, you can identify on the sample, you know, like circling or check marks or something that indicates that these are the ones that you would get rid of.
You can send me these documents, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
All right. The ones we've been talking about. The ones we've been talking about, like these.
That's right.
Like you have. Okay.
It's lunch.
$50 if you make a typo.
Start over.
Change the font.
Yeah, start all over.
Please, please, yeah.
Yeah, no, I can definitely do that.
Yeah, that would be good.
I did that
Yeah.
accidentally today to let you know. I sent them pictures of text. Instead of with the text.
So Howard, over there, we're putting some we'd like to see changed or off.
Ones that you would, what I would say is ones that aren't already on there. Now, if there's ones that you also wouldn't want, you could identify that. But again, we're working off the assumption that
Yeah.
for the most part, these are things that you would keep. But we're trying to identify things that aren't on there or things that, again, you don't want.
I don't know something exactly, but.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, I think everybody's put their, or for the most part, have put the sticky notes up there. So, first of all, what do you think? Do you think you would combine everything? Would you have two different documents? What are your thoughts?
I like the two different documents, even though sometimes they're gonna kind of overlap a little bit, but I like them being individual. It's easier to say, hey, look at that document, or look at that document versus, look at this big document, see if you find it.
Sure.
To me, that's,
Yeah,
Mike-
yeah, it's a shorter.
Might even throw a curveball and say separating crisis and emergency communications,
Mhm.
might even be a third. Just
Correct,
second
have a third document.
Third document
Absolutely.
separates that.
Yeah, and I think
You
that,
do different things
right,
in emergency than you might do.
yep, yep. No, and I think that makes sense. So how that would look is that, these documents would, be, they wouldn't be combined, but they would be, you know, sections within a overall, document. And the signature that we talked about on the first one, that would encompass all of these, is basically how that would look. So, any that jumped out at you on this that you thought, oh man, I would never want that? Or, oh boy, we definitely need to have that one. Anything along that line?
The first, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, communication with me will be handled by the superintendent.
Uh-huh.
Worst possible thing we can do. I've been a PIO, that comes way later. He's too busy doing other stuff,
Okay.
and you need to deflect that.
We just talked about like a PIO, you know, your director of community, like there's levels, right?
Yeah. Do you guys have a PIO?
Well, we
Director
have,
of
yeah,
communications.
we have a director of communications.
Oh, okay,
there's a
perfect.
Superintendent designee.
Yeah, so that would be good. You know, obviously you could swap that out and put that person in there. So that's perfect. Yeah, no, that's good.
If you
And
just
that's
think about
why,
any controversy, you watch the police department, the
Mhm.
police chief's not the first one speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's where being a professional in the field, you can take something like that and say, you know, that doesn't make sense. We ought to do,
It's just good to
Yeah.
have layers, you know, when the superintendent's in front of the camera, man, it's as bad as it can be. You know, I
Oh,
mean, like
yeah.
it's the worst, and I may know the least about the situation.
that's why I look
You know,
like this.
So, no,
I've
I
been in front of
appreciate-
that camera too many
I
times.
appreciate his expertise on that, yeah. I mean, like,
Because you don't want to look like that, or?
well,
Huh?
well, Natasha might know more about it, or Jason, or Beth, or not that they're gonna be in front of the camera, but, you know, when you're live and they're asking you whatever, you know, you gotta, it's an art, there's an art to it, and there's a skill to it. of-
Yeah, there
of
is.
Media relations, so.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously, you know, to the extent that you go down that path, you wanna make sure that there's training and all
Yeah.
that, so, yeah. No, I think that's a good point. Anything else jump out at you?
I just want, just kind of an amendment, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's kind of a pet peeve with me when this mindful communicative quorum governing board members is not properly posted. That's not true. That's actually an AG opinion that says different. So we can
The
actually.
board members are mindful that communicating with a quorum, if not properly
Number
posted.
8.
Number 8.
Number 8.
Is that,
Which one? Count again, Brian.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8. Okay, thanks.
the open meeting law?
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
can have social, we can go do a whole bunch of stuff all together, we can have discussions about our kids, it's only had on deliberative items. There's an actual AG opinion out on this.
Yeah, absolutely, and I understand, those are the kinds of things that, you're gonna wanna clarify over time, that
My concern always
interpretation.
is on this, is once it goes out or public sees it harassed, they
Yeah.
have a different opinion of what we can and can't do, especially if they see us doing it.
Right,
But we can try and word it real carefully, Brian, and again, sometimes the optics, you know, you gotta be careful of the
Yeah.
optics. You guys may be talking about the basketball game, the
Right.
Suns game the night before. you know?
Right, that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, so, but we can play with the wording, I mean, and I'll bring something to you guys as a draft.
and I think I think the key there is to make sure that, and I think that's a very good point, you wanna protect against the perception, but, yeah, in terms of how it actually plays out, you know, in a small community, you're going to be in the same place at times. But as board members, you have to really think that through, and what does that look like?
Well,
You
yeah,
know?
and the other thing is that, you know, there's a point where you have to treat us like adults that we know better. Right, and it's sometimes some of these policies I look at, I understand they bring it down to the lowest common denominator, but there's some point it gets frustrating, because it's like, we know better. Right?
Yeah, I know, it can be frustrating, But obviously, you know, you gotta think publicly, how do you deal with that? But that's part of what you have to, you know, be able to, look at in terms of how you're gonna design this. And making sure that, you know, you are staying within the law, staying within board policy, but making sure that you have the ability to do what, you know, you feel you need to do here.
And sensitive ones, when I draft it too, you know, I'll run it by Clyde, I'll run it by legal to say, hey, are we capturing the whole message? Cause I wanna protect the board, I wanna help the public understand. So I can also get that legal view to say, hey, did we read it? Did we word it carefully? You know, does that say what we're intending to say?
Right.
That way, cause you're right, if we approve this and it's out there, I wouldn't want people to misconstrue it, use it against you or use it against us.
Well, we may even have a board member inside that doesn't quite understand it, if we're violating something when we're not. That's kinda, you can go a bunch of different.
Sure, yeah, it can be.
Yeah, it's okay, some text message to the whole board, say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We're not violating any policy for that. If I say, hey, I want you to vote yes on item, and I'm not gonna give an item, because we got a meeting tonight, and I don't want you
Yeah.
to screw it.
Right.
But, you know, item 12,000, how about that?
Yeah.
We'll never, I've never say never.
You have to-
challenge.
I think you have to clarify that,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Yeah.
So no, that, you know, again, I think that makes sense.
I have a quick question. The one about, the president of the board and the superintendent meeting weekly, is that functionally what we're doing?
Well, in the first 4 or 5 weeks, we try to meet once a week and then we try to do the board agenda. When I have a good idea of the board agenda, I run it by President Todd, say, is
So
this
it
how
works
you
out to be
want
about
it?
once a week, you guys
Yeah,
talk.
yeah, more or less.
Yeah, it seems like a good
Trying-
goal, I
I'm
just didn't know if we were doing it.
I'm trying to keep up with his busy schedule, but yeah, we tried it that way, there's no surprises, and I know the direction, it's your guys' board meeting, really, so I understand how the board meeting needs to work, it's been good so far. Very 4 or 5 weeks.
He's gonna kick.
Well, I think that's
Well, we
a,
can do this, weekly it becomes a logistical problem, but if it's not, yeah, this is good.
Well, we've tried to set Wednesday afternoon, as a time, standing time, where, and then if he needs to adjust, reach out to me or.
I think that's a good segue, talking about schedules and, you know, different board members and what it looks like for their lives, their work, and all of that. And what I was gonna point you to, and we'll talk about this in just a moment, but, there's a third document you have, okay? And it talks about, preferences. This is something that you would fill out and you give to Dr. Monroe, you know, to the extent you're comfortable answering questions. But basically what you're trying to do is help him. Because, you know, I've had board members that were on a plane on Monday and not home till Friday, you know, and they said, if you wanna get a hold of me, send me a text. Or, you know, I had a retired board member that wanted to come in and talk face to face every time. So the idea is just to help the superintendent understand, how do you wanna communicate and what's important to you in terms of communication? Because you'll notice in some of the documents it talks about treating board members equally. Well, equally doesn't necessarily mean the same. It means that everybody's getting the information, but somebody may need a text, somebody may want face-to-face, you know, so on and so forth, or email or whatever it might be. And so, understanding that up front, and also understanding that it doesn't always have to be, you know, the same. In other words, you know, email doesn't have to be the only way you communicate. It can be other ways. You just have to make sure that everybody is clear on how that works for them. And then the superintendent takes that and uses that in terms of the methods that they use.
Yeah, that's really helpful to me, and I think when we talked about that a little bit in kind of some of the interview, but you guys are real busy. I want to be able to accommodate your schedule as best as possible. You know, this is my job. I'm on call 24/7, but if Chris wants to have coffee, you know, every Thursday morning for 30 minutes just to get caught up, we can do that. If it's a phone call or checking in once in a while, whatever is going to work to accommodate your guys' schedule, I'm open to that. And I know it's not the same, so I appreciate, just a phone call, or actually, I'll contact you, John, if I have questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And this just, it helps to clarify. So you're able to fill that out, give it back to Dr. Monroe, and then he has that. In terms of the items, you know, based on time, we're not gonna go ahead and go through those. But I think you understand the process. You know, the process is that, again, kind of, you know, when you look at the 100,000-foot view.
I think we have a little time, could we just make sure we have?
Oh, sure.
We did get some clarification.
I know you guys had to be done at 4:30, but
Yeah,
We could go a
yeah,
little
you're
over,
okay?
I say,
Okay,
as long as-
well, let's go do it.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay.
Get up.
It's over there.
Yeah, it's good.
Get up.
Get up.
Howard says get up.
Get up. We're gonna, yeah, we're gonna do some push-ups and,
Everybody on their toes, yeah.
Some flags.
don't eat the cookies though, as we know.
Cookies?
I already did.
Dr. Monroe, I bought.
Yeah, you guys have to go into our board
All
meeting
for you.
We
Oh,
do.
yeah.
Yeah. Just tell me there's no clarification, you know, trying to figure out later, they all understand.
Absolutely, no, this is a good exercise, and I'm glad that if you have time to do it, this is great. So media contact, okay, you talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your communications
He's a
person,
broker point down the road, you wanna talk to him?
right,
Call him some of this, that's how you do that, you
Yeah.
call him immediately down, then you bring it.
Now,
Yeah.
just before you move off that, I also include that, mine's the pink ones again. But what I put was, I thought it was important to have the word district communication.
yes,
Because as board members, a reporter comes up and talks to us, and we aren't talking about school board stuff, and we're talking about us.
oh, sure.
There should be any restriction on us.
No, that's a different, yeah, that's definitely different. You know, and this is always about communication, because what, you know, I mean, you're a professional, right? I mean, you are PIO
I
or,
was PIO for years.
yeah, so,
Classes.
you know, with the media, or at least my experience, they'll try to pick you off and get what they can,
That's
you know,
why I'm
so,
over the unified messaging,
yeah, that's right.
so that.
But that's why you go
I
through
really
one
wish
person.
Richard Morellis from the Republic was here, I wanna ask him what he thought, because they're gonna call you and you say no comment, you're now quoted. Paul Dixter didn't know what was going on.
No,
He
what
said
I
no
would do is
comment.
I'd say,
Yeah,
I would
and then hang
normally
up the
say,
next
talk to the
person.
superintendent,
Right.
but I think your point's real good, and so I think I would say, talk to our communications rep. That's
Have
what
that
we need to
number
talk
ready to
to.
go. And that person's 24/7, 365. Always. There's always somebody ready to answer the phone when media calls. She's off on vacation, she's passed that phone to somebody else.
My only recommendation is that you also let the superintendent know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
that's
Okay.
common
Right.
courtesy.
Yeah, just so that, you know, because they have to see what's going on. Okay, emergency crisis communication section needed, okay, yep, absolutely. Agenda clarification or clarify, ask the question prior to meeting, so
That's
no
fine.
surprises? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we've had situations where there's been just a small question in regards to an agenda, and instead of taking up 15 or 20 minutes of the board meeting time, just ask a simple question.
Well, and I don't know what Dr. Monroe's doing with that. Do you like call or talk to the board members for the, review the agenda with them? or-
I offer if they have questions to reach out to me or call. And
Okay.
we've only had one meeting
Yeah,
together.
so you're just
you know.
getting started. I know one method is to, you know, call each board member, go through the agenda, and then, like you said, if there's questions, you know, they can bring those up. And if something comes up later, they can bring it up later. But the bottom line is, like you said, they bring it up before
Right.
you get in there.
And so far, I've had a few board members reach out to me on questions or something.
That's
They see
good.
the agenda, reach out, which I appreciate. Hey, help me understand this. How does that
Right.
work?
And
Yeah.
I think it's worked too, he's
Yeah.
called me a couple times, actually, he's talked to others, just said, hey, I know this is something really important to you, or what this is,
Mhm.
you know, so that works.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good to have that,
Sometimes, you know,
that two-way.
We touched that one, we touched on that one, I was thinking about it.
Oh, okay, yep, got it. And, okay, this was the one you talked about, adding district to the communicator, okay.
And the other is combining some of the.
Yeah, combining some, and obviously, you know, you're gonna have a lot of combining and some rewriting maybe,
Mhm.
you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
in terms of, it might be, you know, the content is good, but you wanna change the way it's worded, you know, that kind of thing. Weekly board update, have you, I know you just started, but has that been done?
Yeah.
we did that.
You have a Friday update? Okay.
Just keep it going.
And
Yeah.
is that beneficial? I mean, the
Does that
three of
help?
us brought that up saying that's beneficial, but we didn't see it in the communication plan.
Right. it's just
Yeah.
another plan.
But you guys like that. That's
Well, God, it front
try to
loads-
keep it.
You know, actually, it helps so many of the questions I have, it front loads stuff, so.
Is it helpful for you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Friday
Very
update is
useful.
very good.
We get updates on every.
Yeah, we try to do the things that are gonna be in front of you guys to really help you understand.
Good communication tool, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Prepared,
Prepared information technology for crisis and regular communication. So, our IT department is you ready to go today to support our communications plan? Tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day. A folder that's set up, that's ready to go, that we can move press releases or information into, if we get the unthinkable, which
Yes.
unfortunately has become the daily
Yeah.
across this country. We have to be prepared immediately to be able to be sending that out. So we should have a mailing list. Our communications director should have every single reporter in the state on speed dial.
Yeah,
Close
ready
to
to
it.
go.
But IT should have a Dropbox or a Google Drive or something where we can start moving stuff into it
Yeah.
and getting that.
Well, and along with that, I think this is part of what you're saying too. When those kinds of things happen, at times, you can't get back to your office.
Right, right.
And so, like you say, you have that folder, but you also have, and that's, with the IT, you have that ability to get into whatever systems. So like, do you use Synergy?
Yes.
Okay.
We can also get it from our phone.
That's right, okay. So, you may, have to figure out who the students are in Classroom X. And
Right.
you gotta be able to do that in Buckeye, at the Buckeye City Hall or whatever.
But
you know.
not only that, but also if we're sharing a press release or we're sharing an image, there's a time where a photo gets released or something of that nature.
Yeah,
A centralized box that communications can move into to all we need. This is your box.
right,
This is a link from the outside. Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive,
Yeah.
whatever, where you can get that.
yeah.
Any video, whatever we're releasing, boop, here it is.
No, that's great.
Let's
And
simplify.
that ought to be, part of that plan, obviously.
Right.
And I don't know if it is currently, but
It's not.
that's a great idea.
FEMA,
PIA, okay, yeah. Have you guys, well, that you're actually required.
You are now, right?
As,
To do the 100 and the
Yes.
200.
Yes, yeah. I
Yeah.
remember having to go through all that, and it
Yeah.
was, yeah,
And I don't know how our organization is. I know that I'm personally trained, but I don't know how the organization of Liberty is quite yet.
I
on the
don't,
train.
I bet I'm the only board member that has.
yeah,
I got 3, 4, 7, 8, I got them all, but
yeah.
different job. But yeah, we don't have, which will help people understand some of the things though, like crisis communications plan, your unified messaging. We need to have a unified information center where we're working with the PIOs from other departments. And our communications director needs to know exactly who the PIO for Goodyear PD and Fire, Buckeye PD and Fire, MCSO, neighboring school district. You might call them sometimes, like, hey, Litchfield PIO, I need you over here, we got something bad.
Yeah,
There's a statewide PIO meeting that happens once a month. I would tend to believe this district has never attended that, probably doesn't even know it exists.
yeah.
They do know it exists, I told them about it, pretty sure.
Well, and a lot of these things that he says are part of our general, it needs to be involved in our general crisis and emergency preparedness communication.
You have to go back through that.
And some of the
and
points are
there
good
is
for
a
our board superintendent.
And there's a FEMA format, in terms of identifying the ICs and all,
Yes,
all that.
ICS.
Yeah, okay. And obviously the training is required, so you know that, so, okay.
Better outreach to the public.
Okay, yeah.
So just,
I don't know what you're doing now, but,
well, we have a little bit of a mailing list, but it's cumbersome to get to. If somebody goes to the Liberty School District website, to be able to sign up and getting information. If they want to sign up to you.
yeah, like the electronic
Subscription-based,
newsletters
electronic
or
newsletter
whatever.
stuff, we just
Yeah.
don't communicate.
And it sounds like you've got a communications person, right? that-
Dr. Monroe has met with police chiefs, fire chiefs, city council members. That never
Yeah.
happened previously in a manner that it should have. So he's starting that already, but I just want to keep that at the forefront of work.
Okay, as part of your entry plan, you're doing all that, okay.
Absolutely.
But then just with the general public, you have people all the time that want to know what's going on.
Oh, absolutely,
We got
yeah,
a lot of good stuff.
yeah.
You should be sending that out. Every
Well,
time there's a
and
new story.
you think about it, you're gonna be running a lot of overrides, bonds, and, well, not a lot of overrides, hopefully, but bonds,
Hopefully
that
none
kind
for
of
5
thing.
years.
Yeah, we wanna
None for
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, yours
Get past
went
November,
through.
we're off for 5 or 6
So that's
years.
good, but, that communication is huge in terms of that. They need to feel a part. If you're coming to them, like in some districts, every 5 years or 4 years, that's a problem,
Annual drill tabletop to full scale. So we usually start with tabletops. I don't think we've ever done one here where we've done a true crisis communications exercise or kind of, we set up an incident at a school, we'll test all the problems. I know we have one school right now that the media staging and the first aid is in the same room.
Right.
No, this is
Right, right.
And this
Are you county? No,
We're
you're,
all three.
We're all three.
We have county, city of Goodyear, and city of
And this
Buckeye.
would be part
You
of
do,
our
okay.
general crisis
Crisis.
communication
yeah, absolutely,
plan.
I'm
yeah.
wondering if we're talking about two different things.
Yes.
Well, it
Yeah.
all starts, your crisis communication all blends in. That's why I said we separate the crisis communication a little bit, because it falls into, and it may not be something at school, it may just be crisis, that teachers are arrested for
Yeah, absolutely.
something
And
bad.
it's part of it is part of that crisis management plan, but, you know, by calling that out in your other communication standards, you know, obviously you've highlighted what's important. And I think that's a big deal. Media relations,
24/7,
Yeah.
365.
right,
Deadline every 30 seconds.
absolutely, yep. So Nuna is not,
Not spokesperson early on, we talked.
yeah,
about it.
right, talked about that. And then unified, yep,
So with that, you know, I think we have to identify a way where the board, I believe if we have a certain crisis, we can probably skip the 24-hour notice and have a meeting, a board meeting,
sure,
that we can then have everybody's on the same page. Because the news is gonna just keep going down the list
yeah,
until they find somebody that picks up the phone, and then you're stuck. And as soon as you say no comment,
yeah,
or I don't know, that's even worse. No comment and I don't know are the two worst things you can ever tell somebody.
right,
You know, if you say, I'll get back to you, but now you gotta have the unified messaging, and we wanted that all coordinated. Where if it's something else, we're not saying something that is going to hamper an investigation that the police department's doing as well. So that's all part of that outward communication of what's being released,
sure.
by whom, and all at one time, where if we have a true crisis, I think, we can ask Clyde, but I'm pretty sure at that point.
I'm fairly confident we have policy language that allows us to do that. It really came to the forefront when COVID happened, because school districts were calling emergency meetings and 12-hour in 1 hour. Can you
Yeah,
get
you're
down to
talking
have
about
a
the
meeting?
emergency meetings? Yeah,
Yes.
and that kind of
If you
thing?
had to call everybody together, you don't have to give the 24-hour notice, you can say.
No,
"We're
there
convening
is a
30 minutes."
procedure.
I just don't think we have a plan currently for unified.
Gotcha.
If you talk to Clyde, he can,
Yeah.
you know, work you through that. And, yeah, unified messaging, I think, again, you know, that's part of this whole, really a lot of this is, you know, again, coming back to the crisis communication or crisis plan and how that's gonna look because, you know, and going back to FEMA, all of that, you know, is part of that process.
You can do a
You know,
separate
and
document.
as you go through the training, obviously, you know, you see that, so. Alrighty, well, that's good. I think it was good to talk that through and to understand those pieces, so. With that, like I said, the only other thing is, again, if you don't have to do this now, but, at a point when you have time, you know, if you wanna complete those preference ideas or questions and then get that back to Dr. Monroe, then, you can go from there and you should be in good shape. So, really, that is all of it, you know, I think, you have worked through a process. I'm proud of what you've done because I think you've worked through a process where you've looked at how this could come together. You've discussed the kinds of things that could be in it. You included, well, you looked at the research on what works best for or effective, you know, school boards and incorporated some of those thoughts. And so I think you've got a good launching pad, and now Dr. Monroe just has to take it, put it all together, and then ultimately bring it back to you as a draft. And the other thing that I had mentioned earlier, but I'll mention again, is remember that this is not a one and done. The idea is that you come back to this each year. What I recommend is that during your retreat, because I assume you'll have an annual retreat, or in a study session, you come back to this and you go back through it. And if for no other reason than to, you know, take a half an hour or whatever it takes to look at what you have in there. Because a year from now, you're not gonna remember what you put in there. But if you revisit it and say, hey, do we want that? Do we wanna tweak it? And maybe you have no tweaks, you know, and that's fine too. But at least you've gone back through it and revisited. So, like I said, with that, I think you're done and
Howard,
you're good.
thank you very much for coming to facilitate. This was really helpful. I will plan on taking the posters back, Athena and Minnie, if we can get all the materials. I know it's being recorded and people are taking notes, and then I'll give it my best shot. And Beth and Natasha, we can look at it together, and then we can kind of bring a massage draft to the board that we can rip apart or reword, or you can say, oh, I think we should say it this way, and then we can bring it back again to kind of improve it.
But no, I really appreciate this, Howard, thank you for your time. This
Yeah.
is super helpful to have these conversations, and I agree, not a one and done, but every year we revisit it. It's just helpful to read these things, even out loud, to talk about these things.
Well, I'll tell you, that's one of the biggest problems. You know, a lot of times districts, it is a one and done. They do it, and then, you know, again, 2 years from now, they forget what was in it.
Yeah.
You know, when something happens, there's new people, whatever, so coming back to it is always important. Yeah,
Thank you.
so, yeah, thank you.
Everything, so we appreciate it.
Yeah,
Becoming more involved with your organization as well.
absolutely. Yeah,
That-
yeah, no, it's great.
Just really important. So, with that, members, we go on to 2.2, discussion of announcement. I'm not aware of anything. I think that might have been a remnant left over from the previous agenda, so I think we can skip that. We'll go to 3.1, adjournment of the meeting.
Mr. President, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. Board Member Fixler, your vote, please.
Aye.
Kenyon,
Aye.
Parks. Always wanted to be in the middle, but I'm gonna be a yes, so. We show that approved 4 yeses, 0 nos, and the time is 4:40 PM.